Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. A very good morning to you. My name is Kate Silverton. I'm a journalist and broadcaster. Some of you who were here last year may remember me. I was the one with a rather large bump. I've already seen many familiar faces, lots of you asking what happened. Well, the bump became a bouncing baby boy, and he's at conference with me, with my husband as we speak, so we start them young here. So it's lovely to see so many familiar faces. Welcome back. Now, last year, you will remember something altogether more phenomenal. An innovation, a very simple idea, that has now taken the world by storm. It's garnered much publicity in the past 12 months after we saw that launch by the Varkey Foundation of the extraordinary $1 million Global Teacher Prize. The Varkey Global Teacher Prize, as you'll know, seeks to do for education what the Nobel Prize has done for science, literature, and peace. The focus to uplift the valuable contribution that teachers make every day to establish our flourishing global society. Sunny Varkey has created this most prestigious of prizes to recognize and reward then the teacher who has quite simply made an outstanding contribution to the profession. So first, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to founder Sunny Varkey to the stage, where he will present the top 10 finalists with a medal. And Sunny, I know, must be, like all of us, absolutely delighted with the extraordinary press attention and the support that has been, we've seen really. We've had tweets from the British Prime Minister this morning, the Bill Gates Foundation, or Bill Gates himself, the US Secretary of State for Education. So a huge amount of interest in this, and congratulations again, Sunny, for what is already a successful innovation. This inaugural launch then, we are now going to be introduced to our top 10 finalists for the Global Teacher Prize medal. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. I'm sure you've already seen the Wall of Fame. What we'll do is we'll save our applause until they're all up on stage. So first, let's be introduced to Naomi Volain. Naomi is a member of the NASA network of educator astronaut teachers with a highly, where is she? Is she coming up? There she is. With a highly interactive science classes have awarded her the US Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science and Presidential Innovation Award for Environmental Education. Richard Spencer, he makes science accessible at his school in the UK. He uses the medium of song and dance, which we'll learn more about in a little bit, and that's won him the Salter Prize for teaching chemistry already. Madanjit Singh launched a free school in his home in Malaysia. It's grown to over 150 schools in 5 countries now, providing life skills for disadvantaged youths. Azizullah Royesh, Aziz, established the Marefat School for Afghan refugees in Kabul, aiming to rebuild the education system in order to help build a new nation. Stephen's established a food production business at his South Bronx school, helping achieve food security and urban renewal whilst teaching students key skills at the same time. Jacqueline Jumbe-Kahura, teaching in rural Kenya, strives to create a better learning environment for children, in particular disadvantaged pupils, as well as running initiatives to support the wider community. Etienne heads College Cats Pressoir in Haiti. He demonstrates how a scientific education can serve the needs of the wider community. Kiran Sethi set up the Riverside School in India and developed the Design for Change curriculum, which has been adopted widely by schools in India and internationally. Nancie Atwell has pioneered teaching literature as a reading-writing workshop and founded the Center for Teaching and Learning, a non-profit demonstration school in Maine. And Paula Neang co-developed Khmer Braille and works for the Education for the Blind program, making a significant difference to the perception of blind people in Cambodia. And ladies and gentlemen, I know that you know there were over 5,000 applications to consider. The panel of judges found these 10 teachers stood before us to be the very best of the best. How are we doing, everybody? What's the experience been like so far then? Because it has been really, this is the inaugural, obviously, the Global Teacher Prize, and such worldwide recognition. Who wants to just tell us a little bit about the experience that you have? Naomi.
It's been tremendous. I'm so proud to see everybody here. You know, I watch their faces with the 50, and it's wonderful. Fantastic.
Have you all got the chance to get to know each other? Yes. I know Guy flew in late last night, but Steve and Richard, you've both had an extraordinary experience meeting the Pope already.
Absolutely fantastic. I have to say, a prize in itself, just going to the Vatican. I'm actually a Catholic as well, so to meet Pope Francis and, of course, to meet Stephen was a wonderful honour, wonderful.
Well, Stephen, let's come to you. Let's talk food. Food is your thing. We know it's crucial for life, but you say it's crucial for education too. Why?
Well, for so many, food is a problem. Yet for all of us, it's a solution. And when you teach kids about nature, you teach them to nurture. And when we teach kids to nurture, we as a society collectively embrace our better nature. And that, for me, is what it's all about. So food is an entry point. But when you can feed people and feed communities, you're harvesting hope and cultivating minds. We are growing something greater in the South Bronx, and I'm just so honored to be here with all of you today.
Well, it's lovely to have you, but just tell us a little bit more about your school. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but you have some extraordinary classrooms where you've got these wonderful illuminated towers with all sorts of things growing. So just tell us a little bit about how that all came into being.
Well, I'm not a farmer. I'm a people farmer. But I come from a community that has limited means and limited access to healthy, fresh food. And so many of my kids are becoming sicker and fatter, myself included. I had some tremendous health problems. So to think that we can change the lens of public education via public health, to me, has a multiplier effect of epic proportions.
So what happens? The kids come in, how do they start? And where does the education come into it?
Well, I started my program with overage, undercredited children. And my mindset today is that it's just easier to raise healthy children and fix broken men. So I'm planting my stake in the ground at the lowest grades possible in a pre-K to 5 school and integrating the art of growing food into every single content area. So it's not an add-on, but it is simply a push-in. And the culture of our school goes through the art of reading, writing, science, documentation, planning, the record keeping of growing food. And my goal is to send 100 bags of groceries home with students every single week, 52 weeks a year, aligned to outstanding academic performance. Because healthy students are at the heart of healthy schools, and healthy schools are at the heart of resilient communities. And that's something we all can embrace.
And it's really been taken to heart, hasn't it? I mean, you've got, what, over 100 gardens now?
Well, with one group of students, we installed over 100 gardens across New York City, but our work is having a multiplier effect, and here I am today celebrating with all of my brothers and sisters who are all doing outstanding work. We're a family.
Good. Well, thank you very much indeed. We'll come back to you. Let's just hear a little bit more from each of you now about your own teaching methods and what you feel you've been able to contribute. Richard, let's start with you. You know I'm going to ask for a demonstration, don't you? Richard dances in his class, and not only he dances, but he gets everybody else to dance as well. We'll hear a little bit more about you before I might actually put you on the spot. But you've got a degree in molecular biology. I'm sure there were quite a lot of job opportunities open to you. So why teaching, first of all?
Yes, I did a PhD in molecular genetics. I moved into postdoctoral research and got into teaching a little bit by accident when my PhD supervisor went on maternity leave, had a chance to do some lecturing, and really, really enjoyed it. And the students that I taught said, oh, you should think about doing this. And I did actually decide to train to teach 11 to 18 students. And I went to Durham University and retrained as a teacher. And I must say, I've never looked back. It's a job that I love, I'm very passionate about.
You're so passionate, and you are always looking for innovative ways of conveying information, getting the kids to remember molecular structures. So just tell us about the dancing, because you've received quite a lot of press coverage as a result of this, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. I'm very much believe in engagement in lessons, and that if students are engaged, my conviction is that they learn much better. So we have things such as the mitosis mamba, meiosis square dance, DNA boogie, and they're all just different dances for teaching some very complicated science.
Are there any that you can actually share right now?
Oh, not without the music, I'm sorry, but I'm sure people...
Have the music. I might get you to teach me at the end, and we'll see
I'm
do a
sure,
square dance.
Yes.
Nobody else uses, or does anybody else use dance in your lessons? I know, Phalla, you use music. I think Phalla has got her interpreter with her, although I can't see him. Benito, or is he behind the stage? Benito is the co-founder of your school as well, which educates... where is Benito? Come on, Benito. Benito is also the co-founder, or the founder... Sorry, Benito, that's a very dramatic entrance, a bit of dance for us. Tell us about, the both of you actually, because you're both so much involved in your schools in Cambodia, where you specifically teach children who are blind.
Okay, just to let you know, Phalla started with us in '93 when there was no school for blind at all in Cambodia, and where the ministry himself didn't want any school for blind. And then she joined me and we started with 8 kids. It was difficult because handicapped people are regarded as having done something bad in their previous life. So we started and we have developed it.
So there was a real perception from parents as well that if their children were born with a disability, specifically here blindness, that they weren't wanted, that they weren't worth being educated.
Yes, we had problems to convince parents of the importance of education. People were reluctant to send the children to school. It was like a bad fate. And even one time, one woman told us, when I knew that my child was blind, I wanted to suicide with my child. And so we have done a tremendous work in order to change attitude of Cambodians. And today, I'm very proud, because today we have 98,000 people who have liked the profile of her. Phalla was called by the Prime Minister, by the Minister of Education, and the entire country is behind her to support her. So it's a great, great movement that has been created. And despite of this, that means some parents knew about it and then sent the children to school those few past days. So that's really great.
So, in fact, I wonder, because we still have a perception of disability throughout the world, I can say for the UK included, what is it that has made the difference in changing cultural perceptions?
In cultural, it is important that despite Cambodian belief, Buddhist beliefs, that the parents can step by step understand that every child has a capacity to learn. And when we started to have baccalaureate, when we had the first students in school, and when we had, for example, Sreinet, which was one of the first girls at the School for the Blind, and who is now teacher in the School for the Blind, that's really fantastic job, thanks to Paula.
And how have you achieved the scale? Because you now have 4 schools established. You have 98,000 likes, as you say. Have you
not
Yeah.
90,000 blind.
likes? Yes.
Life.
And how much support have you got from the authorities?
In the beginning, we didn't have any. But step by step, we had the involvement of the king, Norodom Sihanouk, and we had the support from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is blind one eye, and is supporting the school. And in 2011, we made an agreement with him to say, okay, all what has been done for blind and for deaf in Cambodia has been done by a private organization, an NGO, and we want now the Cambodian government to be able to take over. So we have in a process what you call exit strategy, which is to transfer the School for the Blind and for the Deaf to the government. And Paula became civil servant because in 2011, the Prime Minister agreed for all the staff for the blind, for the blind school and the school for the deaf to be civil servant. And step by step, we are building it in 2020, to be totally under the responsibility of the Ministry of Education in order for the country to be responsible for this.
Wonderful. And a final question to you for the moment, but I want to ask each of you to have a think about it. Has there been one moment, one student, Phalla, where you have thought, this has been, I mean, every student we know is special, but has there been one moment when you thought, this is really where I have a legacy, where I've made that difference, that one special thing?
And in fact, I would say 2 children. The first one was Wana, who was abandoned in an hospital in the refugee camp of Saitu, and he wanted to go to school. So he pushed me to build the first school for the blind, and that's why I went to contact Paula, and Paula accepted to leave the United Nations in order to start with us. Even she had to decrease the salary by 2. And the second one is Sreinet, who is a wonderful woman. She was a child from the countryside, and the family accepted after being contacted by Paula to leave her and go to the school, and she became a wonderful teacher. She's shining from inside, and that's marvelous because she's teaching with her heart to other blind children.
Wonderful. I know that's something that a lot of Medinjit, especially, that you really encourage your students to go on to become teachers, and I want to come back to that point. But firstly, Nancie, let's just bring you in at this point. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
I have been a teacher for 40 years. I teach 7th and 8th graders, writing, reading, and history. And I innovate deeply without permission and write my story about what I've done and what my students have done again and again in books for teachers. And I took the royalties from my first book for teachers, which is called In the Middle, and built a demonstration school of my own 25 years ago in Maine, where teachers come from all around the US and also all around the world to observe firsthand the methods that our teachers use for literacy instruction. And we also publish books, so far 13 books, professional books by the members of the faculty about our methods.
Okay, can I ask each of you just to, I don't know if you've got, is everybody okay with the sound? It's just I'm having a bit of difficulty hearing. Could you just pull a little bit, just closer, if that's all right, Nancie? Just a little bit for each of you. And you say that you do it without permission, with a little smile. What is that you seek forgiveness, not permission?
I think in the US, for teachers who are innovative, that's often the case. They forge ahead and then pilot interesting ideas and hope they'll have permission to continue them. And that's certainly how I started teaching writing and reading as a workshop. I closed my classroom door at Booth Bay Region Elementary School, and I invited my kids to develop their own ideas for writing and to choose the books that they would read. And it was controversial in 1980, and it's still controversial today.
Because why? People are afraid of giving children choice?
I think there's a lot of fear around giving children choice and of losing control of the curriculum. But in fact, interest drives anyone's achievement, child or adult. And children are passionate about their own ideas as writers, and they're passionate about the stories and characters that they encounter in books they select. My students read an average of 40 books a year. They wrote an average of 21 publishable pieces of writing in a year. They functioned as authentic writers and readers. Their achievements in both areas were remarkable, but I also know that they will be lifelong habitual writers and readers. They know what writing and reading are good for.
So let's just revisit those figures again. I think on average, a student will read, 10 books? Am I right? Is that right, a year?
The US average is something between 6 and 10, and that's self-reported, so
Right.
it's probably a little high.
And what you're saying is, by giving those students the choice and encouraging, your encouragement and your enthusiasm, you've got that figure up to over 40.
Yes, because there's also time every day in the school day to read, an expectation that children will take the books home and read for a half an hour every night. And lots of what we call book talks, which are commercials for great stories that I conduct and the other teachers and students as well about books we love, so that there are constant invitations for children to make plans for what their next book will be. One of the things I'm seeing is the strength of any reading program is that children have plans as readers. They have books and authors they're dying to encounter next. And our kids have tons of books and authors they're dying to encounter next.
And who influences that then? Is that teachers or parents that inspire those?
The school buys the books, and because we don't have textbooks, we have extraordinary classroom libraries of individual titles.
Okay, Kiran, you're nodding a lot at all of that. Tell us, let's bring you in now. Tell us about you, and you agree with what Nancie's been saying about choice, because you're not, you're innovative in many ways. You're not traditional because you didn't start out as a teacher. You got into it through your son. Tell us how.
Yeah, I'm actually a designer by profession. So I don't come from a teaching background, and sometimes I say that that's probably the biggest, joy. My son, when he went to school, very quickly I had the realization that he would soon become a state statistic because he became a number very quickly. There were 58 children in his class, and the teacher didn't even know who my son was. And I think that was a huge wake-up call. And more I keep seeing that so many of our children become just a statistic, a number. And then we have a national average to say 90% of our children don't learn. My son was going to be one of those. So I realized very early on that if I have to save my own self and my son's life, I had to take him out of school. So changing the school would not have changed the solution. So I said, I'll start my own school.
You make it sound so simple.
Actually, it is. If you really want to, and I heard the first panel talking about passion and belief, it really is that, to have that unrelenting belief that our children have to make the world a better place. And Riverside really became an outcome of that. Design thinking became my go-to mantra because I think design starts with the user. And in education, our children were never part of the program. They were always incidental to education. Like you said, they had no choice. And then we say, okay, after 15 years, they have to change the world. They're not going to do that.
Did you have much resistance to what you were doing?
Now looking back, I can't even recall that because I started slow. I started with blinkers to say that I'm not going to worry about approval. So I never sought approval. I just sought meaning. And I think in that, then what was made visible is the children. And the way they were telling the world that they were competent and they were capable and they were kind and they were generous. And I think that just dissolved the resistance as we went on. And pretty much that became the story.
Okay, I'm sensing a common theme here, because Stephen, you're nodding vigorously at that, not seeking approval.
Asking for permission is begging for denial.
Would you, yes, I'm sure you probably all would agree with that. And just tell us where you are now, Kiran, with the state of play, because actually it's not just, I mean, a small, simple idea, as we've seen with the Global Teacher Prize. Has it evolved into something? You've got your own global conference now, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we realized that the 4 steps of the design framework that we were offering to the world resonated with everybody. So when we put that story out and said, can children intentionally make the world a better place, and can we give them a formula or a framework to do that, we started realizing, my God, it made a big difference. And children from the mountains of Bhutan to the villages of India to the beaches of Peru were kind of saying, this is us. We don't have to be rich or strong or powerful to make change happen. You know, if we feel, if we start with empathy and then we imagine a way to make things better, and we go out and do it, we're sharing the world that we can make it. So today, that same framework is now reaching over 200,000 schools across the world in 35 countries.
Extraordinary. Briefly, so how old is your son now?
Oh, my son is 24 and now he teaches at the school.
Yeah, I didn't know that. How wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. How would you spend the money?
I will spend the money by doing more of what I'm doing. So I think it's going to give me greater audacity. And I will be able to then be a lot more ambitious and a lot more audacious and shameless about the way we'll spread the word. So that's pretty much how I'll go and spend it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Madanjit, let's bring you in now. I mentioned you a little while ago. You realised the importance of education late in life because you left school quite early. So tell us about your journey, your path to becoming a teacher.
I had been very lucky 30 years ago to realize that education has 2 parts. I was a school dropout, but when I realized that if somebody believes in themselves, if somebody is helped to cope with being able to understand or be taught education, they can learn anything. And when I realized this, I started to change my life. I started to see that I could become whatever I could become or whatever I wanted to become. And knowing that this is such an important aspect of education, I wanted to share it to the whole world. Now, when we look at children who come from either rich families or well-trained families, families where they guide, love, care, encourage, these children do well in school. But when you have a family, when you have children who don't get that extra support, that extra guidance to be able to cope in studies, then they fall off from school. So when I realized this and saw that many, many poor children in the world were not able to cope with studies because there was nobody at home to support them, guide them, love them, help them to believe that they could be whatever they wanted to be, when I realized this, I started to take on all the kind of children who are school dropouts, people who are, poor, not able to really come up in life, and started to educate them. And before teaching them the subject, I would actually empower them to help them to believe. And after doing that, start teaching them subjects so that they will be able to achieve it. And when they started to realize they could actually study, because we helped them to believe in themselves, we helped them to concentrate, we helped them to be able to go, they could believe, they started to improve. Now, doing that, I was giving everything for free so that these poor people, they cannot afford education, so we're giving it for free. But I wanted to give them dignity. I wanted to give them dignity because I didn't want them to get something free as though they are takers. I told them that for every person I teach, I would like you to also teach others. So that's how these people became teachers. They became peer modelers. They began to show others also by encouraging, guiding, helping, and teaching them. Just like how an elder brother or elder sister teaches the younger brother and sister, these people became senior students who were teaching junior students to be able to cope, and this is how it is spread.
But how do you reach a child? And you'll have all, and in the audience, you'll all be doing this every day, but what is your key for reaching a child who doesn't have that confidence, that feeling that they have the ability? How do you do that? How do you connect with them?
Something very interesting happens. when you get the first group of students by trying to get friends, relatives, or anybody to send them in, and when you get the first group to become people who believe that actually they can come up in life, they go around telling everybody else. And then many other people want to come in. And we had a system where, because in the countries I work with, like Cambodia, East Timor, and all that, girls are not given the same importance in education as men are given. I made a condition that for any boy who wants to attend our free boarding school, he has to bring either a sister or a friend. This way we got gender balance. And this way we were able to get as many people as possible into schools. Yeah.
Wonderful. And they also help with building the schools
Yes.
as well, don't they?
Yeah. And since we are not an organization which is funded and we try to open in remote places, we teach them that anybody can open a school just by basically getting somewhere near your house, put a zinc, start with a whiteboard, and then teach. And if they can do it, then they will be able to run things. So they don't need to wait for big money or have all this proper infrastructure before they can teach, because at this particular moment, they must have foundation education. They must have the ability to speak English, which has become a necessity in my part of the world, Malaysia, East Timor, Cambodia. You need English to get a job. You need to have basic mathematics. You must be able to count. Then we teach them computers by getting very, very cheap second-hand computers. And most important of all, they must have that belief in self, that ability to be reliable and responsible so that an employer can take them. And that's how they've been able to do this.
And your system of teaching means any student who comes to you will be able to read, write, and speak English within how many?
Okay. Now, a little bit of background. I used to be working for Mobil Oil in Papua New Guinea. And in Papua New Guinea, they speak Pidgin English. Pidgin English means English vocabulary and Pidgin grammar. Now, being in the country, I spoke English, but I didn't know how to be able to speak Pidgin because of the grammar. But when I actually sat down and tried to learn the grammar, I realized that it was very easy. Within a few days, I could actually speak. Now, what I did is I started to study and investigate actually what language was all about. And when I found a system to be able to teach English in a very, very simple, systematic way, literally anybody can learn how to speak English between 3 to 6 months. And just, in fact, after this conference, I go back to Thailand. I have a contract with the Ministry of Education Thailand to train 180 education directors and train 40 schools with the system as a pilot to see whether they might be able to introduce this into the country. And this, I must say, thanks to Global Teacher Prize. The government would have never given me a second look if I was not one of the top 10.
That's wonderful to hear. And on the, I asked the question about the money front, and I will ask everybody eventually, but one of the judges I spoke to this morning said that was key for her in terms of how the money would be spent in determining who would ultimately end up becoming the winner. And I hasten to say, I don't know who the winner is. I asked not to be told, so I'm asking everybody from the same place. But where would your money be spent?
When I thought about it in the past, I thought we would use the money to be for opening new schools. But after coming here, I changed my mind. After coming here, I realized that we 10 have got something to offer to the world. Because we 10 have been able to produce phenomenal results because we actually make a difference in the life of the students. We care, we develop, we improve. I would today use that money to actually get all 10 of us to work together and learn from each other so that we will be able to give out something to the world.
Wow. I'm loving that idea, and I'm sure everybody else is as well. Well, that's a very exciting prospect. If indeed, perhaps we'll all have to adopt that, and then it'll just happen.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much indeed. Let's bring Aziz in now from Afghanistan. Your journey to teaching was also not easy, of course. You attended school until you were 10 when the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan forced you to flee to Pakistan. So how then did you get into teaching?
First of all, I think it's an amazing opportunity for me to be in this group, especially in the presence of the people that they again will become my teachers. When I returned back at the age of 16 from Pakistan, in my village, I was regarded as one of the few individuals who could read and write. So the first people that I started to help them with reading and writing were my 2 brothers and 1 sister. And now these 2 brothers of mine are the pillars of this school, Marefat High School, and they even dedicated their whole life, even education, for this school. And I'm very happy to have them on my side. Gradually there, I encouraged the peers or the kids that they were at my own age in my village to come and to start by reading and writing. In 5 months, I had enabled them to completely read and write in Farsi. And that was the reason that the authority in my village, in my district, they asked me to help them establish a school there because all the area was then out of the control of the Soviets and their pro-government in Kabul. So I went there and established a school with the students in different ages, even some of them at the age of 17, 16, 18, just to start with ABC from grade 1 and grade 2. In 3 years, I had managed to expand these schools to 5, and I would go to Pakistan at that time in difficult terrains under the attacks and the threats of the Soviets jet planes, and would bring school supplies from the Swedish Committee for Afghanistan to these schools. And now hundreds of youth have graduated from those schools that have become professional cadres, doctors, engineers, and others. The other time that I went to Pakistan, it was after the Taliban took over the country. And I, with the help of my friends, especially my 2 brothers and a colleague of mine, Dr. Anwar Yusufi, who is here, I'm very honored to have him here, and Rawalpindi, Pakistan, established a school for the refugee kids. Most of them were carpet weavers, and they didn't have even a single hope to return back to country. So here, beyond literacy, we had to provide them with a hope that they can return back to the country. And that was the reason that we invented this specific curriculum that we call that humanism, that started with the power that the human being had in themselves to overcome the challenges. In 6 years, we had 4 branches of this school in the cities of Pakistan, and more than 4,500 students, boys and girls, were attending that. After the collapse of the Taliban regime, when we returned back to Kabul, Kabul was just as the post-war Berlin, you know. That was completely ruined city. Even there was not a single wall not to have the scar of the war. Here, that was not a question for me, just to help the students with literacy or even hope. It was a time that the students would come there to learn how to become responsible and productive citizens to form a society that they would deserve to live in. And that was something that helped us to go on. Here, I have 2 definitions that I would like to share as a teacher. One, for me, because I've not been attending school beyond grade 5, I've been learning everything through the people that I've encountered or the books that I've read. So for me, teaching is, to facilitate the process of learning and not to change it into a complicated issue that the students should be scared of. The second, because I was working in the most poverty-stricken part of Kabul and among the most persecuted ethnic community of Afghanistan, that they had suffered from 2 times of general massacres just in 1 century, at the beginning of the 20th century and at the end of the 20th century. So I, found a definition for my education. That was a pedagogy of the poor, pedagogy of the disadvantaged people, or sometimes I would call that the pedagogy of the miserable. And the formula for that was that you deserve to have your achievements, anything that you want, your rights, your freedom, anything. But you have to all the time think about the cost of this achievement, because the poor cannot afford to pay even a single price for their achievements. And this was why that I was thinking about anything that even led me afterwards to find the roots of violence, or to find a solution to curb the violence or fanaticism, because I would call that it is increasing the cost of your achievements. Violence is an approach of violence. Fanaticism is a kind of vision that you have, but it increases the cost of your achievements. And that was the reason that in 13 years, we have come all this way ahead. Now we have more than 3,500 students. 10 class of our graduates have gone to university. We have hundreds and hundreds of girls that they're experiencing their freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. They have a very good now connection with their families, and they have not paid a very single price, apart from one single better experience of mine that also I would call that as a cost of our achievement. That was in 2009, when the fanatical clerics in my community, they attacked my school just because our girl students, they had stood up there to protest against a controversial law called the rape law, or the shared family personal status law. They would go to the parliament and they would call for the amendment of that law because they were not happy to accept that. But at the same day, these fanatical clerics, they provoked their supporters, a group of mob, they came to our school. They called for my execution, burning of the school, and just in 2 hours, thousands of people had gathered around the school. No one knew that whether they were attacking the school, they were there because of the protection of their kids, or they were just watching. But it was really a very harsh time for me. After that, we again sat there to call the students to return back to school just one day after that attack, and to open the school with an expectation that if we have even the 15% of our students back to the school, that is a success for us. But ironically, surprisingly, we got more than 95% of around 3,300 students back, hand to hand with their parents, and they showed this protection. For me, it was really a relieving time. Why? Because I learned that my students had gotten a vision that they had changed their own mindset, but also they had shared that with their respective families as well. So these kinds of success stories that I would talk about all the time with my students shows that the cost of our achievement has been very low. And now still we are working on that we should change the whole community. We should get rid of fanaticism. We should get rid of violence, hatred, but we should not pay a cost that is not affordable for the poor or disadvantaged community. This is the type of education that I and my colleagues have been presenting to the community, and that's why that we feel relieved that now our audience has expanded throughout our country and now to the global scope.
Yes, well, indeed. And firstly, congratulations on those achievements, and as you say, with girls in education too. What does it mean now to have the sort of media attention that you've had, because you're one of the top 10 finalists now for the Global Teacher Prize? How do you think that will impact?
It will, I think, greatly impact, because now it is a platform for me to share my experience easily with other people inside my country, to tell them that if Marefat's experience has been a successful one, it can be expanded throughout the country, because we started with just $500, equivalent to $500. Now we have an asset and property valued more than $3.5 million.
Wonderful.
We started with 37 students and 8 teachers. That 5 of these teachers were religious students. They were very young, but they just could read and write. And we had 2 12th graders that were my brothers that I talked about. And Now we have more than 210 faculty, 167 of them are the teachers. We have had 100% success in the university entrance exams of this 10 class of our graduates. None of them have failed. We have around 164 students that they've got scholarships going abroad, including 17 of them to the US. And some of them are in the very prestigious universities such as the Tufts. You know, this is a very good model to tell for the community, and to mention that for all these achievements, we've not sought and gotten even a single coin from the international donor agencies, nor from the government of Afghanistan. But we've gone to the community to help them realize that education is their need, and they have to go for that. And for the first conversations that we had with the families, they were complaining of their poverty. They would say that they don't have even a single bread. I would tell them that, yes, you do have a single piece of bread, but you can divide it between your belly and your brain. That is the way that you can go on. And all these achievements have come through the contribution of hundreds and hundreds of people in the community that they have contributed with 1,000 apps, for example, or a cheer, or helping us with some breaks. But now we have all these assets and property for the school, which is, again, owned by the community. It is supervised by the community. And I'm very happy to have donated all these things to that board of trustees, which is comprised of 25 members of the influential people in the community. So for me, I think it is a very good chance now to encourage even the Minister of Education to tell them that if you have the legitimate authority to rule the hearts and minds of people, to tell people what to wear, what to do, what to read, now you can use this experience to expand this model of education throughout the country, to just have the people included in this campaign.
Well,
I think this
I'm absolutely sure it will be. And I think, Jack, if I can bring you in on this, because there'll be a lot of what Aziz has been saying that you will recognize, because, of course, you teach in very disadvantaged rural areas in Kenya. But a little bit about you, because I was fascinated. You come from a family of teachers, 3 diplomas. You won a scholarship among thousands to read for a master's degree at the Institute of Education, University of London. So congratulations on all of that just already. But tell us about your life now as a teacher and your method of teaching, and maybe to pick up on some of those points that Aziz has been talking about.
For me, I chose to stick to teaching because I interact with a lot of children who learn under very, very difficult circumstances. Lack of food, lack of resources, lack of uniforms, lack of learning materials. The teachers themselves have limited resources. I said, I'm going to stick to teaching. I went into social work in 2004 up to 2010. So when I got my master's in education and international development from the Institute of Education, I said, I am going back to teaching to inspire these children. And for me, I chose, other than classroom teaching, I also wanted the community to remain engaged, particularly the parents, because I'm working in a community where a lot of parents have not gone to school. So a lot of them are not really passionate about education, and there's that sense of apathy that I'm not able to educate my child. So I began programs, and that's when I founded a community-based organization, which is Lifting the Barriers. And it is an education and development organization where I wanted to combine classroom teaching and having the community and the parents still remain engaged. So what I learned when I was a social worker in terms of resource mobilization, I said, I must look for the resources and the circumstances I want. So when I met Ingrid Vink, who is here, and I introduced myself and she listened to my story, the Land Foundation was also willing and very ready to support my work. And I began thinking of programs that can make a difference in the community I serve. So I started thinking about starting a project, and I thought about the Learning Companion, which is about improving the teaching and the learning environment in the schools that are in the areas I serve, and more importantly, at the school where I teach. So through the support I got from the Land Foundation, I began also going out to look for support from banks, from other partners to support my work. So the Learning Companion has helped improve the learning environment, but I began thinking about the girls who are not in school, a lot of them who get pregnant and drop out of school. So I also started a campaign, which I call the Every Girl Campaign, where I go out there and talk to a lot of girls in school and those that are not in school but are supposed to be in school, inspiring them that there is hope in education. They can have a better life in education. So I've been also been providing sanitary towels to girls, and I've been able to reach over 2,000 girls with sanitary towels and undergarments to help them remain in school. And for the parents, I said, well, probably it's not enough to sit back and think probably help would come and put their children to school. So I decided to start a program of financial empowerment, which I call the Women Inclusive Financial Empowerment Program. So I visit groups at least once every week to train them on how they can mobilize their own little financial resources and make those savings to help meet the basic needs of their children, particularly putting their children through school. So those are some of the things I continue doing, that at school, I work together with the teachers, inspiring them to create an environment that is free of punishment. That learners can go to school without fear to be punished. That as teachers, we have a critical role to play to inspire these children to learn. But because I appreciated that most of these learners come from very difficult backgrounds, and they bring some baggage to school. A lot of pain, a lot of harassment, a lot of broken homes, lack of food, and they need to come to school in an environment that is caring, that is loving. So I began speaking to my teachers and other teachers why probably we need to do things differently from the way we did them, or from the way we were taught in school. That probably we came from those kinds of environment where probably teachers will probably not handle the students well. And I was telling them, this has to change. These children need more love and care. And if that is possible, then they can be able to learn. So I also introduced another innovation, which I call the teach model. Teachers becoming trainers, educators, administrators, caregivers, and healers. That they must learn to play multiple roles, not just looking at classroom instruction, but looking at, yes, preparing children to excel, but more importantly, providing the care and the healing that a lot of these learners require in order to excel in school. So I've been handling a lot of work over the weekends because a lot of children, I also realized they have a lot of unsupervised weekends because parents are struggling to go out there, look for some employment, and therefore a lot of children are left alone at home without any supervision, without food. So I started a program for the weekend and the school holidays, which I called the Weekend Inclusive and School Holiday Program. So every Saturday, I visit the school where I teach, and other students from other schools also come and join in. And then over the holidays, I try to have the children remain engaged so that these children are able to learn something additional, and particularly things that cannot be taught in a normal school day.
So it's doing things differently, I
doing
think
things
is
differently,
a key.
and of course, telling them and giving them hope that there is hope in education. Education opens windows of opportunities, and they have to make that personal effort to remain in school, to complete school, and to transit to the different levels. So I first start by inspiring them that their difficult backgrounds should not be a deterrent. If anything, those difficult backgrounds should energize them to want to be in school every day. But I feel probably that's not enough until I go back to teachers and tell them, let's create a conducive environment of teaching and learning.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, Jacques. Thank you. And let's bring our last two teachers in now, because both science, I've been keeping the science bit for the end to come back to. So Guy, let's start with you, because from Haiti, your school has become the benchmark for quality. You teach children as well as training teachers across the country, very much focused on science and technology. Now, because many schools in Haiti lack science labs, you turn to television to convey and engage your lessons in science. So tell us a little bit about that and how you've managed to engage the whole community.
One time the Minister of Education said he thinks to close some schools that can't give the result in the official exam. I said no. You don't have to close the school. If you close the school, you will open the jail. If you close the school, you will encourage the young people to become gangsters. You increase young people in the street. I said, we have to train the school to involve, to change the scientific teaching. And he said, okay, you have a good chemistry lab. Could you help the ministry to help another school? I decided to organize a class for the TV and to encourage another school to do the same thing. I didn't use the sophisticated project. I preferred to use natural project like garbage, red garbage, like lemon for acid, like soap for basis. And I use glass, like a beaker, and I train every 2 Sundays a month. I realize a class for the TV. After that, I work with the National Police and with a lot of embassies in Haiti to find the materials to place on the public place, the materials to pass every weekend this chemistry class. And after 2 years, we increased the result from 10% for the official exam to 40%. And I said, it's not enough. I continues to work, I continues to create another class, and now we passed the official exam from 40% to 60%. And we still continues to help another school. It's the reason why we decided in my school to organize at the end of each year a science fair. And we invite the radio station, we invite the TV to film that and to pass for another school. During this science fair, each student have to think about a project according to curriculum, official curriculum, but according to a need of the community. For example, there is a group of students approximately 14 years old. They work to repair a traffic light that didn't work after 20 years. Yeah. And the last year, we have a group of students to create a camera for public surveillance. And they offer this camera to the Police National, to the Ministry of Interior, because they want to involve in the security of their community. And we invite TV, we invite radio station to share that experiences with another school. I think that it was not enough. It's the reason why once a month I meet all teachers, all science teachers in the country to train them how they can use this TV class. And now I think that we have a best result.
I'm sure they agree. And very briefly, I understand that you have declined 5 invitations to become Minister of Education. 5 times. They really want you, Guy. Why? Just very briefly, why? Why have you turned that down?
I am a technician of education. I am not a politician.
Good answer. Naomi, we bring you in finally, but not least, of course. You also came from an unconventional route into teaching. Tell us about that and your passion for teaching science and environmental science particularly.
I've always done something with science. I first became a nutritionist and followed that path for a while. Worked in both community nutrition and clinical nutrition. I became a medical copywriter in New York City, and I loved that. And then I moved again and found some motivation in some other teachers that I'd seen. And I thought, yeah, I could do this. I'd like to work with teenagers. So there was the thread of science all along. And I trained and got a job in the school that I'm now in. And I love it. I love working with the high school students, and we have a lot of fun together. I treat them like scientists. And it's important that way they do their own discovery on their own. I'm really just the facilitator there in the classroom.
Tell us a bit about the subjects. That's rather unusual as well, isn't it?
Well, I brought in 2 classes into my high school. One is botany, plant biology, which is very rare in high school. And I also brought in the advanced placement, environmental science, which is college level course given at the high school level. And I love these. They were nature. They were great, and it got the students' hands literally dirty with the earth, digging in the soil. And students found in that things they had never done before. They had never seen things up close. They hadn't looked at the ground. They hadn't looked up at the clouds. And it was really thrilling to be able to show them this observation. And then from there, they create their own questions.
So again, giving choice, which is again another theme that we've heard. Who nominated you out of interest?
Well, I was encouraged to apply. And one of my colleagues, a history teacher, and then one of the directors in the state of Massachusetts said, you know, you really should apply. And I said, okay, I'll try.
And why do you think? I mean, what is it that, if you've listened to everybody now, what is it that you think encapsulates and is the reason for why you're all sitting here? What is it that makes a good teacher?
I think it's the love of the students. I think it's a love of the subject area. And I think it's an enthusiasm that is spilling over for everybody about the work that they do.
And also because you work in a densely populated area as well. Again, we've heard a lot about disadvantaged students. That is no barrier, is what I think we're hearing today. That should not be a barrier to learning.
That's right. That's right. Students, they all can learn, and they all can learn something. And of course, they're at different levels. But the ability to have them find something, to learn something, is huge. It's global. They can all do it.
And what does it mean for you to be sitting here today then?
I'm overwhelmed. It's fantastic.
What difference will it make for your students going back and telling them that you've been here?
Well, I teach about the Earth, the globe, all the different biomes, and how different countries affect their environment. And I think coming back, it can be even more authentic, speaking with my colleagues here.
Okay, well, on that note, I've just looked at the time, and we are out of time, but I think what I would ask you all to do now, and I'm sure you're going to be upstanding, for our top 10, our finalists, the Global Teacher Prize finalists. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to you all.